And that's really what I saw in Real Broker. Hey, these guys have a better model. Their model is really built for the agent who wants to build a brokerage and also, recruit, build a downline as well.
What's up, Ken? How you doing?
Hey, Joe. How you doing?
Good, good. Well, thanks for joining us. I'm excited to hear a little bit about your journey. I get asked all the time about why Taylor and I chose to transition our brokerage over to Real. And rather than dance around the subject, I just wanted to go right at it. Like, why? Yeah. So take us through the journey. Like, why on earth? Where were you 6 months ago? What kind of led to this decision? I mean, you enjoyed running a brokerage. You ran a profitable brokerage, and yet you still decided to come into the Real ecosystem. So kind of take us back to the start. How did this whole thing come about?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. The key to what you just said there was running a profitable brokerage, and that actually wasn't the case. And
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't until I got in touch with Spring and then started to do masterminds with her and figure out how to run a brokerage. And so, to take you back to the beginning, my entire career has been from a real estate standpoint on the default side. So I built and sold two companies. We were third-party REO asset managers. So we worked with Fannie, Freddie, Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, HUD. We had all of the contracts back in the day. And obviously, back in 2006, 7, 8, that was kind of the heyday of the financial crisis. And we were printing money. And so while we were building those third-party asset management companies, we decided, hey, we live in Denver. Why not, instead of giving all of these properties out to the local agents, let's just start our own brokerage. And so that's how Metrowest was started as an independent brokerage, was just to feed it listings, REO listings that we were getting through our other third-party asset management business. And so, in the heyday, we were feeding it 40, 50 listings a month. And that was, 2006, 7, and 8. I ended up selling our second company, which was PMH Financial, to Stewart Title in 2011. I had a 2-year earnout, so I had to stay with the company through 2013. So in July of 2013 is when I first stepped into Metrowest, the real estate brokerage. I was unlicensed myself, and again, having my whole background in default management. And so it was a time when we were extremely successful. I mean, the entire economy tanked and we were just going gangbusters, printing money from an REO, standpoint. And so, now looking back at it, a rising tide lifts all boats. And so if you think about that, we were really a success because of the product of the market and not necessarily what we were doing. And so right. Me and my ego figured, hey, hell, I built 2 asset management companies. I can run a brokerage. This will be easy, to do. So I jumped into the brokerage side of it full time. Actually didn't get licensed myself until 2015. And really from 2013 to 2019, I tried to build a profitable brokerage. Again, not looking into masterminds, not looking to partner with anybody else, figuring I can figure this out on my own. And to the tune of about 800,000 of my own personal investment, wow. Putting into the company to keep it alive, during that time. So 2019, we got into rent to own. And that's really become a mainstay for us. And so if you think about it from an institutional owner standpoint, when we were doing selling, REO properties, those are institutional sellers, be it the government or Fannie, Freddie, whoever it may be, to large, hedge funds and everything. We're handling the disposition of those assets. Today, the majority of our business is rent to own. So we're working with institutional buyers, to put into these rent to own programs. And it was only through the rent to own program where we were generating our own leads. And I was giving them out from a company standpoint at 50-50 splits, because up until that point, actually up until we moved to Real, our agents were on a 90-10 split with the brokerage. And so here I am,
So you're really quick. So every brokerage I've evaluated has one of two problems. They either have good profitability, the turnover rate's pretty high, or they struggle with profitability, but nobody ever leaves. So if you were giving people these leads at a 90-10 split, I'm guessing your turnover rate was pretty much zero.
we had zero turnover rate, and we had also what I call, because we didn't charge agents for any of the office space. We didn't charge them for copies. We didn't charge them for anything. We had agents who just hung their license with us just for the purpose of what I call lifestyle agents. They did 2 or 3 transactions a year.
Yeah.
And so, so we were not profitable at all. And it wasn't until I went to a mastermind with Spring, met up with her, and then saw, how to run a brokerage properly. And it was something that she said to me is that, Ken, you're doing your agents a disservice by not charging them more, because at the end of the day, if you don't have profits coming into the brokerage to be able to turn around and offer human capital leverage, showing agent leverage, whatever it may be, you need money to build out the brokerage and that's exactly what happened. Our most, profitable and successful agents, they were stuck at 25, to 30 transactions a year because they were doing everything themselves. And so they had no lives.
And you didn't have the capital because you weren't making the money to be able to reinvest in them to get them to 40, 50 transactions.
Exactly. So to get back to answer your original question, Joe, I had looked at, switching brokerages for quite some time. And I looked at EXP. We have another company here powered by Your Castle. So they're another local company here, Your Castle. They've got about 3,000 agents. And so I looked at other models, business models out there. And I was this close to going with EXP because I thought the model that they offered was the best out there. Hadn't heard of Real yet, but I couldn't get my arms around the idea that they were already at that time, close to 50,000 agents, and the 2 guys who were recruiting me, they didn't have brokerages. They had 3 or 4 agents in their office, and they were recruiting this huge downline to build out this recruiting model. And I didn't know that that's the way I wanted to go. At the end of the day, we were still buying and selling real estate, and I wanted to figure out how to build, a brokerage from that standpoint. And so when I got introduced to Spring and heard about Real and their model, I was like, oh my God, this is like being, in all honesty, if I could go back and turn back the clock of time, I would join EXP in 2014, 15, sure. Before they, took off. And that's really what I saw in, Real Broker. Hey, these guys have a better model. Their model is really built for the agent who wants to build a brokerage and also, recruit and build a downline as well. But the opportunity there was, hey, this is like turning back the time, getting involved in EXP before it took it off. EXP has already proven the model. And so now you have a better model with an opportunity to get in with a company who, is in that infancy stage. I think we're at 5,000 agents today.
Right.
And so I'm just excited for the future. And when I saw that, when Spring sat down and showed me everything, the revenue share, the fact that as an independent agent, I could never offer my agents an ownership stake in the company. Right. So that was, I think what I looked at, it's an ecosystem that was ready-made, plug and play. And so when you look at the fact that they do all the financials, all the 1099, accounting and reporting, liability alone. I don't know about your market. I'm sure it's crazy all over the country, but here in Denver, February through April, people were making offers 70, 80,000 over asking. They were waiving all inspection contingencies. They were making money go hard, and so as much as you counsel your buyer, if they tell you that, hey, this is the offer I want to submit, you still have to do it. And so I think there's a wave of lawsuits out there waiting to happen when people find out that once they're in their home for 6 months and there was a major problem that would have been, uprooted during an inspection that they decided to pass on. I just think, from that liability standpoint, being able to hand that over to, so all the signs were pointing that, hey, we need to find a better way to grow the brokerage. And again, the Real model just spoke volumes to me.
So talk to me a little bit about, and if you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat. What did Spring do really well? Like in bringing up the conversation with you, because it's always one of those things where the thing I struggle with is, I do CrossFit, or at least I attend CrossFit class. I just finished 75 hard. I'm doing low carb eating. The reason I bring all this up is because I become very passionate about what I'm passionate about. And so it's so
Yeah.
easy for me to talk to people. And I have a tendency to be spammy just because I'm so excited about things, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
for people, watching this on the Zoom or Facebook Live or even listening to the podcast, what did Spring do right to make sure it was actually something that she was communicating with you about, but not like hard selling or pitching you in an uncomfortable way? Like what did she do right there?
Yeah, I think that's, a great point. In fact, I wish she probably was more pushy because I probably would have joined even sooner, because she wasn't. And that's, she said, hey, everything that my first involvement was through a Sisu mastermind, one day mastermind in Utah there. And then I signed up for her scale up program. I attended the mastermind in Mexico. And so all of these opportunities were get around all of these really incredible people. And the more and more I saw, proximity to her world, I was saying, real broker, real broker, real broker, real broker. And I finally went to her and just said, hey, you got to tell me about this. I've, seen it. I've had other people explain it to me, but, I really want to understand this better. And so I think it was her way of putting it out there, but not in a pushy way. It was me coming to her, just being around all of these other events and opportunities and masterminds and things that she was presenting without coming and saying, hey, you got to join, Real Broker. It got me to just say, well, why is it? What is she hiding from me? And and then I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I let me go to Mexico? I know I'm going to be able to talk to people about, Real Broker there and so forth. So we literally just switched over. I introduced it to my team the middle of April, and May 1 was our, transition date. And so, and what's funny about that is it's literally 1 year behind Spring. So she joined Real May 1 of 2021, and we joined, May 1st of this year.
Well, talk about your team, because I know a lot of team leaders, a lot of brokerage owners. The curious thing about Real, Taylor and I went through this a year ago as well, was we became passionate. We believed in it. Like the easiest thing for me to compare it to is somebody kind of presents, that red pill, blue pill type thing. And as soon as I come to understand, like, wow, there is an agent owned model where every single agent can win by having an ownership in the company and building a residual income. And then there was that moment where Taylor and I were like, how do we explain this to our agents in a way that they can dissect it and realize this is actually a good opportunity? Because I'll tell you, for the first 3 to 4 months, I think the majority of our agents that followed us over trusted us. They knew we were competent, and they were kind of like, all right, well, you guys, we believe in you guys. So whatever you're going to do, right? So how has your team received it? What was their initial response? What were some of the ways that if somebody's talking to a brokerage owner or a big team leader, they can say, well, here's what Ken said, and this is what really helped his team adopt it?
Yeah, so I had two, obstacles to overcome. The first being that, moving to Real was a change, and nobody likes change. And when I talk about a change from an environment where there were 90-10 splits, they didn't pay for anything, that was a huge hurdle. And so, I think it comes back to, again, my conversation with Spring, where she said, hey, you're actually doing a disservice to your agents because you can't, facilitate their growth. I think the best, example of that is Colton Lindsay's 5-level framework. And so, level 1 and level 2 is really where our agents were at. They were using their own, face-to-face appointments, their own sphere, their own network, but they were burned out at 60 hours, 70 hours, 80 hours a week. And so it was trying to explain to them is that, hey, we need to bring more money into the organization. And at a minimum, we're going to go, because Real requires it, 25% team leader has to take at least 25% of the commission. That's where we're going to move to. And we did move that to anybody that was grandfathered in with us at a 75-25, at a 90-10. They're now at 75-25. All new agents we've hired, and we've hired 2 TSAs and 6 agents since we became part of Real, and all of those are at 50-50 splits going forward. And so, so I explained that to them, I'm not going to take it down to 50-50, but you're going to, get an opportunity to join at the 75-25, and you'll be grandfathered in at that because you've been with us, all along. And so I said, hey, If you don't believe me, go and talk to, Spring's organization. And I had a lot of my agents come out for a shadow day with me to Spring. She was very open in allowing us to come in and see her organization. And they wanted to see that. They loved that culture. They want, how can we recreate this? Well, the only way we can do it is by changing the split. So the people who got it, had moved over. And out of our 22 agents, 12 joined immediately. 3 inactivated their license. So they were the hangers on that I was talking about, the lifestyle agents. They really didn't do any. 5 moved to a new brokerage. And that's just because they were performers and didn't want the splits. And I still have 2 that are undecided today. But the agents that joined see the bigger picture. They see the stock ownership program, the equity participation is phenomenal. It's a 401k that's built in. I could never offer to them to that.
Right.
And the fact that the company, matches 25% and then 50%, depending on the 5 or 10% that you're in. I mean, it's a built in. And I showed them, I said, look, this was EXP stock. They floundered at $2, for 6-7 years before it finally took off.
Right.
It's come back, and the whole stock market's come back, quite a bit.
Right.
I said, but we have the opportunity right now. And if you start, participating in this and you're buying stock at, $1.50, $1.75, $2, that stock, if it goes up, $10, $15, you're going to 5x, 10x, your investment in there. You're going to look back at me in, 3 or 4 years and say, Ken, I never even missed that money. And now I've got, look at my app, I've got, 80, 90,000 in stock. And this is something that's, for all of our agents, and I love them to death, but they're paycheck to paycheck. And, this is a wealth opportunity plan for them to build for the future. And that's something that as an independent that I could never, offer them. And so I think to your point, you just kind of have to show them and explain all the benefits. And if they get it, they get it. And if they don't, you got to allow them to move on. And so it's funny, the 5 that have moved to new brokerages, 3 have reached back out to me saying, hey, how's everything going over there? And it's been 3 weeks. So, so it's, it's interesting. I think some of them, a few of those might even come back.
Well, I think there's a danger that team leaders and brokerage owners fall into, which is I want to be everything to everybody. Like they're deathly afraid of any attrition at all, which is why, most brokerages fall into one of those 2 categories. They either concede so much because they're afraid of anyone leaving, or they get serious about profitability and their turnover becomes pretty high and they're uncomfortable with the turnover, which was with Taylor and I. So talk a little bit about your growth since. I think you've got some cool ideas of what you're working on with agent attraction. I know you have, you shared with us kind of a cool funnel that you've created around transaction coordination and consistent income for agents, which then leads to agent growth. So talk about that.
Yeah. So, as I alluded to, we do a lot with the rent to own, and it's a new market segment. Home Partners of America is the 800-pound gorilla in the space, but there's Divvy Homes, there's Trio, Home America, there's Landis, Loftium. Loftium is a really interesting one where they actually pay for your down payment by you renting out, a portion of your house. And so there's new entrants into this space all the time. And I think it's a new market segment that's not going anywhere. With the shift that's going on in the market today, this is the perfect opportunity because people can try before they buy. If the market continues to go up, they can exercise their option and buy that home. They got 5 years to do it. If not, that they can stay in there. And the thing with rent to own is it really, for us being in such a competitive market from an offer standpoint, allows us to take a fringe buyer, somebody that was maybe FHA, had to go 3% down, didn't have a large, down payment. When you're competing in this market going 60, 70,000 over, full appraisal gaps, nobody wants to see an FHA offer. And so it allows us to get these people qualified for the rent to own program. Now we come in making an all cash offer, limited inspection contingencies. There's no appraisal gap because they're paying cash for the property. So we really are able to convert these fringe buyers. And so what we've been able to figure out is that with pay-per-click ads, I can generate a ton of leads. And so I'm really giving already approved buyers to my clients, go show them a house, get them into a home, and then, onto this rent to own program. And so that's really allowed us a level of attraction where we're now meeting with new recruits, and we can tell them, hey, look, if you've struggled in this market, working from a buyer's perspective, or you're having trouble getting listings, join us, as part of Real. We're already generating these leads for you. We're handing you approved buyers. All you have to do is go and find them a home, in the MLS, to put under this program. And so it's been a huge win for us. And to your point, what we started doing is I ran 5 ads through Wise Hire. One was just a buyer's agent, one was a rent to own agent, one was for an ISA, one was for showing agent, one was for a transaction coordinator. So showing agent, we maybe got 5 or 10 hits. That transaction coordinator, that ad alone netted us about 139, I believe, candidates over a 5-day period, to the point where I had to turn it off. We just had so many, candidates coming in. We started interviewing those candidates. And what I found is a lot of them were agents who just, they were good agents. They got into real estate to become agents. They were looking for a TC role, not really because they wanted to be an administrative doing the paperwork side of it. They just needed a steady, income. And so if they were already a TC looking for another TC, it wasn't really working for us, because we were looking for a 1099 contractor. But we would explain to them the rent to own program. A lot of it is paperwork driven, because you have to follow the guideline of the rent to own program. And so we called it a TC agent. And so that's how we just started interviewing these agents, that were coming in for a transaction coordinator, explaining to them that, hey, we can get you, 3 qualified, buyers here within the first 2 weeks after you go through the training, and you'll have 1 or 2 of these under contract by the end, and at the end of the month. So they were ecstatic about it, because it was a way for them to stay in real estate, do what they got into the business for. But here was now another opportunity for them to be successful. And so they don't even ask, what the splits are at that point. They're like, how quickly can I get involved?
Because their concern is income, right?
Their concern is income.
And I think that's the key, is it's all about framing things. And so I did a training, and I think you were on there with the Exactly What to Say by Phil M. Jones.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily, Taylor and I learned a long time ago. We went to a Craig Proctor seminar in Palm Springs, Florida, or Palm Springs, California. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Craig, but he's a Canadian Remax guy. And he was always like, do what everybody else can do, but say it in a way that no one else is willing to say it. And so that's where the "if I don't sell your home, I'll buy it myself" program came from. And people, millions and millions of dollars in commission have been made from that exact same principle. Well, if you boil it down, who wouldn't buy one of their own listings for, 65% of market value? Because that's what it all boils down to, right? And it's just agents are so afraid to say it, because they're afraid to be on the hook for 100%, or how do I explain to my seller that I'm not willing to pay full market value, or whatever. So they get caught up in the thick of thin things, when in reality, what you've done is you've said, I understand that agents are concerned with consistent income. So I'm going to use a funnel that basically says, hey, we are looking for transaction coordinating agents, which you probably would hire one of them as a TC if you're like, all right, this person's a rock star. But in reality, because you frame it in that way, now you start to talk to them about, well, do you really want to be a TC, or do you want consistent income? And they'll go, well, the TC was almost like necessary evil to consistent income. I want consistent income. You're like, well, let me show you how to get consistent income. I think that's what's so brilliant about what you've done, is you've reframed their issue, which is I need money. And you've done it in a way that makes them comfortable to have the conversation with you. And then when you discover that, okay, this isn't about being a TC, this is about making consistent money, then you're able to bring them into your world, which I think is brilliant.
And Joe, what we've also done is, for those agents that absolutely need money out of the gate, we've even created a base for them. Now, for the base, they have to give up 75% to us, 25% to them, but we pay them a $3,000 base, $1,500 on the first, $1,500 on the 15th. I'm surprised about half of those agents wanted that option versus just coming in at 50-50 splits. And so I've got 3 on there right now that are, Yamily, who joined us in March, probably our most successful agent. She's got 3 closed already. She's got 4 more under contract, and she's working with 3 other buyers right now. And I'm trying to explain to her, Yamily, you're losing money because you won't switch over. I told her anytime you can switch it back and you'll get the 50-50. We just stopped the guaranteed base. She likes to knowing that on the 1st and 15th, she's going to get $1,500, even though she's leaving thousands and thousands of dollars on the table every single month because of her production.
So the concern for me would be that they would just be basically taking your money and not working, but you're not seeing that to be the case?
No, in fact, it's the opposite, because 1099 contractors, they don't have to show up for the meeting. They don't have to come in. We do have a separate independent contractor agreement we give them because of the base, where they have to be dedicated, and they're more dedicated. They're coming into the office every day. They're putting in 40, 50 hours, a week. We see them, working those leads. And so it's just the opposite, where, they believe because they are getting that base, that they need to work harder and show up for all the meetings and be there. And so the ones that are most successful and profitable are the ones that are on the base, slash 25% commission.
So talk about that for me. Do you think so? Phil Jones in his book says people are much more likely to move to avoid discomfort than they are to create comfortability. So is the theory you're working off of there that people are so afraid to lose their base income that they're willing to work hard to preserve it, where our industry is based on the creation of something as opposed to the fear of losing something, right? Like real estate agents are trying to create commission. What you've said is, how about I give you a base salary and then you work really hard not to lose it?
Yep. And if you look at every one of these agents, especially the ones that are applying now for the TC role, if you look at their DISC profile, they're a very low D, but they're a high S and a high C. So from the standpoint that they want that guaranteed income, they want that security and stability of being handed approved buyers. They get to do this transaction side and the showing agent side, which is the business that they absolutely love, and that's why they got into real estate to begin with. They just don't know how to go out and hunt for the deal. And so, we're taking all of those agents who, have the drive and the discipline and the stability to be very good agents. They just don't have the ability to go out and find the deal for themselves. We're handing them approved buyers, and now they are just shopping and they're doing extremely well. And so, I can't be more excited, especially now that we've moved over to Real and with the new commission structures. And we've actually taken another step to blow up the rent to own program. We've kind of, that focus, singular focus, we're putting about 90% of our efforts and energy into that rent to own space right now. And it's working out like gangbusters.
I love it. Well, guys, obviously you can see why I wanted to interview Ken. He thinks outside the box. I think the key takeaway is, number one, if it made sense for me to move my brokerage, which was profitable, Taylor and I were running a profitable brokerage, but our turnover rate was pretty high. And if it made sense for Ken, who was struggling with profitability and never lost any of his agents, if it made sense for both of us on both ends of the spectrum, then there are people in your world running brokerages and teams who are either struggling with attrition, which was our problem, or profitability, which was Ken's problem. And it made sense for both of us to bring our worlds into Real. If it made sense for us, it's going to make sense for your friends. So Ken, I'm excited to grow with you. I love the way your mind works. I love thinking outside the box. What I really love so much about what Ken said, and I hope you guys got this as a takeaway, is it's that old Craig Proctor principle, which is discover what the individual really, really wants, and then build a frame around them that would make them comfortable to at least have the discussion. And we talked about curiosity. I'm sure Ken, when he gets in these interviews, I'm sure you're very curious. Like, well, tell me what's important to you? What does your world look like, right? And it's that building of empathy that we talked about through curiosity that puts him into a position to where people will open up to him and say, well, here's what I really need, Ken, right? And then ultimately he could build a framework from there. So Ken, I'm excited to grow with you. I'm excited to get to know you a little bit better. By way of announcement, June 21st in Las Vegas, Nevada, there is a O Shift, recession proofing your business, seminar or meetup here in Vegas. You're all welcome to come. Free ticket. Just use the word shift is the promo code, and you get a free ticket. June 22nd in Denver. Ken, I don't know if you know that, but Tamir's coming, the CEO of the company. It's going to be an awesome event there in Denver on the 22nd, and then the 23rd in Salt Lake City. So 3 days in a row. You can choose Vegas, you can choose Denver, you can choose Salt Lake City. Leilani just put the Eventbrite link there. So register, get your free ticket, use the promo code SHIFT. Vegas 21st, Denver 22nd, Salt Lake 23rd. We'd love to see all of you guys there. Any last parting comments, Ken?
No, I mean, the only thing I would say is that, it's only been 4 weeks now. May 31st, we joined a month ago, and it's been phenomenal. I wish we had made the move earlier. I'm glad we're on board with Real and not EXP. We didn't make that move. But, I am so excited for the future and where we're going. And just the last 30 days, it's been off the charts that, if you haven't made the move yet, do it. You won't regret it.
Well, and this is the principle I talk about all the time is between myself, Taylor, Spring, Ken, Gail, Darren and Cam Wade, our collective group, we will figure this out no matter what comes. We did REO, Ken did REO, Taylor's got, government contracts. We're all doing really cool stuff. So no matter what the economy tosses at us, I'm comfortable that we have this collective group of people who have the experience that we may lean on Ken and go, hey man, how would you navigate this situation? He go, well, here's what I'm doing. Here's what you guys should do. Or you guys may come to me. You may go to Spring. You may go to Taylor. You may go to Colt. Whatever it is, that's what I love so much about what we built. And that's what Real Broker allows us to do, is to connect ourselves in a way that no matter what problem presents itself, we will collectively figure it out. And that's why I always talk about collaboration is so much greater than competition, because it's not about me versus Ken. It's about how can Ken and I dominate, across North America. It's not me versus Amy. It's not Amy versus, Taylor. It's all of us working together. We're only 5,000 right now. We'll be 50,000 someday, but even then it'll just be a small percentage of the real estate economy. And as we work together, as we grow together, I think that's where the real power exists. So Ken, thanks for hopping on.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
Okay, have a great day, guys.